Fleet Leader Amelia Bailey stood in the command chamber of the Zailban flagship, her gaze piercing the darkness as she recorded her final message. The sleek, metallic walls echoed with the faint hum of machinery, creating an atmosphere of impending doom. She began. My children, there was a time when we, the Zailban Empire, failed to truly understand the nature of the humans and their allies. We saw only a young race, appearing 20 years prior, in need of proper guidance by superior lifeforms like us. Amelia paused, recalling the Empire's arrogance. The Kantari, whose empire had stood for nearly a millennium, the Nimbaro, revered for their stealth systems and neutron cannons, and the Xantar, known for their seemingly impenetrable energy shields, had all fallen to humanity in mere days, weeks, or months. The Zailbans had dismissed these defeats as flukes, underestimating the human potential. Somehow, mankind developed particle weapons that disintegrated anything they touched and navigational shields that no weapon could pierce, she continued. They were unruly, impossible to rule. Even our pheromones, which had subjugated countless species, had no effect on them. The Zailban societal norms were challenged by the humans. Unlike the rigid Zailban hierarchy, where females ruled and males were subservient, human society was fluid. Men and women stood as equals, their cooperation and unity baffling the Zailbans. Humans sought to free the Zailban slaves, inciting chaos and rebellion. Many of the brainwashed thralls attacked with the recklessness of zealots, dying by the billions in futile attempts to suppress humanity's advance. In those days, almost every race under our control attacked with suicidal fervor, only to be annihilated by the humans. The balance of the galaxy was disrupted, but the true turning point came 10 years ago, when the Shiren returned. The Shiren, a species that had once defeated the Zailbans, brought new technologies, reigniting the Empire's hope for conquest. Amelia remembered the first time she laid eyes on the Shiren emissary, a towering figure exuding an aura of invincibility. With their advanced weaponry, the Zailbans believed they could finally crush humanity. With this new power, we attacked, Amelia recounted. But the humans had evolved. Their armor shrugged off our kinetic weapons, and those that didn't were diverted back at us. Their missile swarms were relentless. Years of brutal warfare followed, culminating in the assault on Celestis, humanity's homeworld. The battle was a grueling test of endurance, the Zailban fleet bombarding the planet's defenses day and night. The Forward Unto Dawn, humanity's flagship, stood as a colossal barrier, its sheer size and firepower dwarfing anything the galaxy had ever seen. It took us 2 days of concentrated fire to disable the Forward Unto Dawn long enough to board, Amelia said, her voice wavering as she relived the memory. And almost another full day to fight our way to the bridge. Amelia's thoughts drifted to her genetic provider, a male who had dared to question her orders one too many times. With a heavy heart, she had detonated the bomb implanted in his brain, a safeguard against rebellion. His death was a stark reminder of the costs of leadership in the Zailban hierarchy. We secured the bridge, and I was ready to torture the captain, to make him watch as we bombarded his world to ash, Amelia continued. But then, a combat engineer called my attention to the communications terminal. On it was a message that changed everything. The message was an emergency flash from Earth, the core nation of the Milky Way, detailing the imminent arrival of a combined human fleet. 20 billion warships were en route, with additional battle groups and allied forces to follow. They were not a young, primitive species, Amelia realized. They were a massive conglomeration of species from across the universe. Quintillions of people, billions of ships. It was impossible, but there it was. In that moment, Amelia's confidence shattered. She ordered a hasty retreat, leaving the crew of the Forward Unto Dawn alive. Desperate, she commanded a final salvo of weapons designed to cause the most agonizing deaths possible, but humanity's defenses intercepted them all. I do not believe we will survive this battle, Amelia confessed, her voice heavy with resignation. Avenge us, my children. And son, remember that your sisters have the codes to kill you anytime they wish. Daughters, do remember to use those cattle prods and branding irons on him at your convenience. Amelia ended the recording, her eyes reflecting the cold light of the monitors. She knew her message would be her last testament, a final attempt to ensure the survival of her legacy. As she gazed out into the void of space, the weight of the galaxy's shifting balance pressed heavily on her shoulders. The Zailban Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they faced the consequences. But Amelia Bailey was determined to fight until the very end, even if it meant sacrificing everything she had ever known. The command chamber was abuzz with tension as Fleet Leader Amelia Bailey replayed the message from the Sharen emissary. The Zailban fleet, crippled by humanity's unexpected might, had been on the brink of despair until the Sharen, ancient adversaries turned unlikely allies, had reappeared. Amelia stood tall, her piercing gaze fixed on the holographic figure before her. The Sharen emissary, clad in intricate armor that shimmered with an otherworldly light, projected an aura of unassailable power. Fleet Leader Vambrace, the emissary intoned, its voice resonating through the chamber, we offer you the means to reclaim your dominance. New technologies, unmatched in their potency, will be at your disposal. The promise of advanced weaponry reignited a spark of hope within the Zailban ranks. Amelia, ever the strategist, saw the potential to turn the tide of war. The Sharen had once defeated the Zailbans, and now their technological prowess could help crush humanity. With these new weapons, we will annihilate the humans, Amelia declared to her commanders. The chamber echoed with murmurs of agreement, the morale of the fleet lifted by the prospect of newfound power. However, not all welcomed the Sharen's aid. Within the fleet, discontent simmered among the males, emboldened by whispers of rebellion. Amelia's genetic provider, a man of rare intellect, had often questioned the brutal methods employed by the Empire. He had been a thorn in her side, and his death had been a necessity to maintain control. Yet, the seeds of dissent had taken root. Younger females, led by the courageous Divana, conspired to liberate their subjugated kin. Divana, her eyes ablaze with defiance, had sought to remove the bombs implanted in the males' brains, a safeguard against rebellion. Your actions are heresy, Divana, Amelia had warned, her voice cold and unyielding. The Empire cannot tolerate insubordination. Divana's execution had been swift and merciless, her charred remains a grim reminder of the consequences of defiance. The rebellion had been crushed, but the spirit of resistance lingered, a shadow that haunted Amelia's thoughts. With the Sharen's technology, the Zailban fleet launched a renewed assault on humanity. The battles were brutal, each encounter pushing the limits of their newfound weapons. Humanity, ever adaptable, countered with their own innovations, but the Zailbans pressed on. The siege of Celestis was the pinnacle of this renewed conflict. The human homeworld's defenses were formidable, yet the Zailban fleet, bolstered by Sharen weaponry, managed to break through. The Forward Unto Dawn, humanity's colossal flagship, stood as a daunting barrier, its sheer presence a testament to human ingenuity. It's a monstrosity, Amelia muttered as she observed the ship through the viewscreen. The Forward Unto Dawn, bristling with armaments, dwarfed the Zailban vessels. Its hull gleamed under the relentless bombardment, absorbing hit after hit with tenacious resilience. The battle raged for days. The Zailbans deployed their most advanced weapons, but humanity's defenses held firm. Amelia's frustration grew with each passing hour, her determination hardening into an unyielding resolve. We will take this ship, she commanded. Prepare for boarding. The operation was a grueling test of endurance and strategy. Zailban soldiers, armed with Sharen technology, fought their way through the corridors of the Forward Unto Dawn. The humans, tenacious and resourceful, resisted fiercely. The conflict was a brutal dance of death, each side pushing the other to the brink. After nearly a day of relentless combat, Amelia and her elite guard reached the bridge. The human captain, a figure of stoic determination, stood defiant, his eyes meeting Amelia's with unwavering resolve. Surrender is your only option, Amelia demanded, her voice a steely command. The captain's response was a terse shake of his head. "We will never surrender." In the midst of the standoff, a combat engineer drew Amelia's attention to a nearby console. The emergency flash message from Earth detailed the imminent arrival of a combined human fleet, numbering in the billions. 20 billion warships, Amelia whispered, her confidence shattered. The scale of humanity's alliance was beyond comprehension. The realization of their impending defeat dawned upon her. Humanity was not a solitary race, they were part of a vast interstellar coalition. The Zailban Empire, once the pinnacle of power, faced an insurmountable foe. "Retreat!" Amelia ordered, her voice laced with desperation. The Zailban forces withdrew, leaving the forward unto dawn battered but intact. In a final act of spite, Amelia commanded the deployment of weapons designed to cause maximum agony, but humanity's defenses intercepted them all. As the Zailban fleet retreated, Amelia's mind raced. The Sharen's aid had been a double-edged sword, providing temporary power but ultimately revealing the futility of their struggle. The Zailban Empire's dominance was crumbling, and the future was uncertain. Amelia ended the transmission, her message to her children a mix of defiance and resignation. The war was far from over, but the path ahead was fraught with peril. She would fight until the end, for the Empire and for her legacy. The battle was lost, but the war continued, and Amelia Bailey was not one to surrender easily. The retreat from Celestis was swift and chaotic. Zailban warships, their hulls scarred from relentless combat, limped back to the safety of their controlled space. Fleet leader Amelia Bailey, seated in the command throne of her flagship, felt the weight of impending defeat pressing down on her. The message from Earth had been clear: humanity and its allies were mobilizing an armada of unprecedented scale. "We are not finished," Amelia declared, her voice firm despite the growing dread within her. "Prepare for the counteroffensive." In the days that followed, the Zailban fleet regrouped at a distant starbase. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair the damage and integrate the remaining Sharen technologies. Amelia knew time was against them, the combined human fleets would arrive soon, and they had to be ready. Amid the preparations, Amelia's thoughts turned to the Sharen. Their aid had been invaluable, but she couldn't shake the feeling that their assistance came with a hidden price. The Sharen emissary, a figure of unsettling calm, appeared in her mind's eye, his words echoing with an ominous undertone. "Trust in our technology, Fleet Leader Vambrace. With it, you will reclaim your empire." The Sharen had delivered on their promise, but Amelia sensed an ulterior motive. She had no choice but to use their weapons, but she resolved to keep a vigilant eye on her so-called allies. As the fleet readied itself, Amelia received intelligence reports detailing the approaching human armada. The sheer number of ships, combined with the diverse array of species and technologies, was staggering. Humanity had rallied not just their own kind, but allies from across the universe, forming an unstoppable coalition. "We must divide their forces," Amelia strategized with her commanders. "Draw them into smaller engagements where our technology can overwhelm them." The plan was set into motion. Zailban ships launched hit-and-run attacks on the fringes of human space, targeting supply lines and isolated outposts. The goal was to spread confusion and force humanity to divide their forces. For a time, it seemed to work. Reports of skirmishes and minor victories filtered back to the flagship, bolstering morale. However, the human response was swift and coordinated. Their armada remained steadfast, advancing with relentless determination. It became clear that humanity had learned from their previous encounters, adapting their tactics to counter the Zailban strategies. In the heart of the flagship, Amelia convened a war council. Her top commanders, faces etched with grim determination, gathered around the holographic display of the battlefield. The situation was dire, but Amelia refused to yield. Fleet leader, General Kareth, a seasoned strategist, spoke up. "The humans are adapting faster than anticipated. We need a new plan." Amelia nodded, her mind racing. We will make our stand at Karuk, for, she decided. It's a strategically vital system. If we hold it, we can disrupt their supply lines and buy ourselves more time. The Zailban fleet moved swiftly to Karuk, for, fortifying their positions around the planet. The system's dense asteroid fields and treacherous space phenomena provided natural defenses that the Zailbans could exploit. Amelia hoped it would be enough to turn the tide. As the human armada approached, the tension in the command chamber was palpable. Amelia watched the tactical display, her fingers gripping the armrests of her throne. The humans were coming, and this would be the defining battle of the war. The first wave of human ships emerged from hyperspace, and the battle began. The Zailbans unleashed their full arsenal, the Shiren weapons blazing with lethal precision. Human ships responded with equal ferocity, their formations tight and coordinated. Amid the chaos, Amelia directed her fleet with ruthless efficiency. Every move was calculated, every order precise. She pushed her ships to their limits, exploiting every advantage the terrain offered. For a moment, it seemed like they might hold. But humanity's resilience was unyielding. Their ships absorbed the punishment and returned it tenfold. The battle raged on, a brutal exchange of fire and fury. Amelia's flagship shook with the impact of enemy fire, alarms blaring as systems failed one by one. "Fleet leader, our shields are failing," a tactical officer shouted. "Hold the line." Amelia commanded, her voice cutting through the din, "We cannot let them break us." The flagship shuddered again, a massive explosion rocking the hull. Amelia steadied herself, her eyes blazing with determination. They would fight to the last ship, the last soldier, if necessary. Then, amidst the chaos, a message came through. It was a distress signal from a nearby Zailban ship, the Horizon's Edge. The captain's voice crackled over the comm, desperation evident. "Fleet leader Vambrace, we're surrounded. We can't hold out much longer." Amelia's heart clenched. The Horizon's Edge was a crucial part of their defense. If they lost it, the battle would be over. She had to make a decision, and fast. "All ships, focus fire on the enemy surrounding the Horizon's Edge," she ordered. "We must break their hold." The Zailban fleet rallied, their weapons converging on the human ships targeting the Horizon's Edge. The combined firepower created a brief opening, allowing the besieged ship to escape. But the cost was high. Several Zailban ships were lost in the maneuver, and the humans quickly regrouped. As the battle continued, it became clear that the Zailbans were outmatched. Humanity's coalition was too strong, their unity and resolve unbreakable. Amelia realized that Karuk, would fall, and with it, the last hope of the Zailban Empire. Yet, in that moment of despair, a new resolve took hold of her. The war was not over. They might lose the battle, but they would not surrender. The Zailban spirit would endure, no matter the cost. The chapter ends with Amelia's determination solidified, a vow to continue the fight against impossible odds. The stage is set for the final confrontation, with the fate of the Zailban Empire hanging in the balance. The atmosphere on the Zailban flagship was electric with tension as the battle for Karuk, reached its zenith. Amelia Bailey stood resolute, her mind sharp despite the fatigue gnawing at the edges of her consciousness. The human coalition had proven to be a relentless force, their unity a stark contrast to the faltering Zailban resolve. "Status report," Amelia demanded, her voice cutting through the cacophony of alarms and explosions. "Shields are at 20%, her tactical officer replied, sweat beading on his brow. "Hull integrity is failing. We can't take much more of this." Amelia nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Zailban fleet was being systematically dismantled by the human armada. Yet, she refused to surrender. The legacy of the Zailban Empire rested on her shoulders, and she would fight to the last breath. "All ships, regroup around the flagship," she commanded. "We make our stand here." As the Zailban vessels moved into formation, Amelia received a private transmission. The Sharen emissary's holographic figure materialized before her, its expression inscrutable. Fleet Leader Vambrace, the emissary intoned, our offer of assistance remains. We have one final weapon, but it comes with a cost. Amelia's eyes narrowed. What cost? A singularity bomb, the emissary explained. It will destroy the human fleet, but it will also annihilate everything in this sector, including your forces. The room fell silent as Amelia weighed the decision. The singularity bomb was a weapon of last resort, a devastating power that could turn the tide but at the expense of everything she held dear. No, she decided, her voice firm. We fight with honor. We will not resort to such measures. The emissary's hologram flickered, its expression shifting to one of disappointment. Very well. The choice is yours. As the transmission ended, Amelia returned her focus to the battle. The human fleet pressed their advantage, their tactics precise and unyielding. The Zailbans fought valiantly, but it was clear they were outmatched. Suddenly, a surge of enemy fire struck the flagship, sending it into a violent shudder. Amelia was thrown from her command throne, the impact jarring her senses. She pulled herself up, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead, and surveyed the damage. Fleet Leader, we've lost main power, an engineer shouted. Weapons systems are offline. Amelia's mind raced. Without their primary defenses, they were vulnerable. She knew this was the end, but she refused to face it with despair. All remaining ships, target the enemy command vessels, she ordered. We may fall, but we will make them bleed for it. As the Zailban fleet launched a desperate counterattack, Amelia's thoughts turned to her children. She had fought for them, for their future, but now that future was uncertain. She hoped they would remember her not as a tyrant, but as a leader who did everything to preserve their legacy. The flagship rocked again as another volley of enemy fire hit. Amelia gripped the console, her eyes blazing with defiance. If this was to be their last stand, they would go down fighting. Amidst the chaos, a transmission came through from the human flagship. The image of the human commander appeared on the view screen, his expression one of solemn respect. Fleet Leader Vambrace, he began, your bravery is commendable. Surrender, and we will offer terms of peace. Amelia's jaw tightened. Surrender was anathema to everything she stood for, but the offer of peace was a glimmer of hope in the darkness. And what terms do you propose? She asked, her voice steady. The commander's expression softened. Cease hostilities, and your people will be spared. You will retain governance over your homeworld, under human supervision. The war ends here. Amelia's heart pounded. The offer was humiliating, but it was a chance to save her people. She glanced around the command chamber, seeing the resolve in her officers' eyes. They had fought bravely, but continuing would only lead to more senseless death. Very well, she said, her voice heavy with the weight of her decision. We accept your terms. The human commander nodded, his respect evident. Prepare to receive our boarding parties. We will ensure the safety of your crew. As the transmission ended, Amelia slumped into her command throne, the reality of their defeat settling over her. The Zailban Empire had fallen, not in a blaze of glory, but in a hard-won truce. The human boarding parties arrived, their presence a stark reminder of the new order. Amelia watched as her crew was disarmed and escorted away, her heart heavy with a mix of relief and sorrow. In the aftermath, Amelia sent one final message to her children. She spoke not of defeat, but of resilience, of the need to adapt and survive in a changing galaxy. She hoped they would find their own path, one that honored the past while embracing the future. The chapter closes with Amelia standing on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the human fleet secured their victory. The war was over, but the story of the Zailban people was far from finished. Their future was uncertain, but they would face it with the same courage and determination that had defined their empire.